Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started on an ordinary Saturday morning, the kind where sunlight creeps softly through half-closed blinds, and the house feels unusually quiet. The air carried the warm scent of detergent, and the soft humming of the washing machine echoed through the hallway. I was in the laundry room, crouched down, gathering my clothes, shirts and socks scattered in a rush from last night's chaos. I didn't expect him to walk in just then. His footsteps were quiet, but his presence filled the room, like it always did. My husband, Adil, leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, a slow grin spreading across his face. There was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read, something playful, but intense. "Did you forget something?" he asked, his voice smooth, teasing. I turned around with a laugh, tossing a shirt into the basket. "Just trying to clean up your mess," I said, only half joking. But before I could reach for the last piece of clothing, he stepped closer. Much closer. The space between us narrowed, our bodies barely an inch apart. His hand brushed mine, intentionally or not, I couldn't tell, and time seemed to freeze for a moment. It wasn't just about laundry anymore. Adil and I have always had a strange kind of rhythm. We tease, we argue, we laugh, and somehow, all that tension always simmers just below the surface. That morning, it bubbled up. The washing machine buzzed louder behind me, shaking slightly beneath the weight of wet clothes spinning inside. He looked at it, then back at me. "You always pick the worst time to do laundry," he said, his fingers brushing a stray hair from my cheek. "Or maybe, the best time." My heart skipped a beat. There's something thrilling about moments like that, the ones that sneak up on you, unexpected but electric. Our marriage had seen its ups and downs, like anyone's. But lately, we'd been trying. Taking time. Making space for the little moments that reminded us why we fell in love in the first place. Still, I hadn't expected that our washing machine would become part of the story. The tension hung thick in the air as he reached behind me, grabbing the last piece of my laundry, his knuckles grazing my waist. I met his eyes, searching for a sign of what he was thinking. And just as I opened my mouth to speak, he whispered something that left my knees weak. What he said changed everything about that morning, and what followed after, well, that's where the real twist begins. He didn't let go of the shirt right away. His fingers lingered on the fabric, just like his gaze lingered on me. There was something different in his eyes that morning, softer, but also more curious. It wasn't just about attraction. It felt like he was remembering something, maybe an old version of us, back when everything was new and exciting. I looked away, pretending to focus on the laundry, but my heart was thudding too loudly for me to ignore. My hands trembled slightly, and I wasn't sure if it was because of the cold or just the way he was looking at me. Adil wasn't always this gentle. He was the kind of man who stayed busy, always thinking 10 steps ahead, work, bills, responsibilities. But lately, he'd started slowing down. Not with life, but with me. He'd begun noticing the small things again, how I tied my hair up when I was tired, or how I hummed when cooking. Maybe that's why this moment felt so heavy. It wasn't just about standing in the laundry room. It was about all the things we hadn't said for months. All the pauses we'd ignored. The distance that crept in between conversations. And now, suddenly, here he was. Close. Present. Watching me like I was still his favorite mystery to solve. I tried to lighten the mood. "You're blocking the soap, you know," I said, reaching past him. He didn't move. Just smiled that slow smile of his. "You never needed soap to make a mess," he said under his breath, his voice low. I laughed, but my cheeks burned. We were playing a game, and both of us knew it. One where words meant more than they seemed. Where a laundry room could turn into a memory, or maybe the start of something new. He finally stepped back, just a little, but enough for me to breathe. I turned to load the rest of the clothes, but I felt his eyes still on me. And then he said it, quiet and sudden, "Do you ever miss how things used to be?" The words hit me harder than I expected. I paused, my hands in the basket, unsure how to answer. Because yes, I did. But saying it out loud would mean more than I was ready for. And just like that, the silence between us became louder than the machine behind me. I didn't answer him right away. I couldn't. My hands moved on their own, folding a towel that didn't need folding, just to buy myself a moment. His question wasn't simple, and he knew it. It wasn't about missing the past, it was about where we stood now. And maybe he was afraid of the answer, just like I was afraid of saying it out loud. Behind us, the washing machine slowed, the soft click of its final cycle echoing in the quiet space. I felt the air shift. He stepped back slightly, maybe giving me space, maybe pulling away out of habit. "You don't have to answer that," he said after a beat, his voice softer now, unsure. I glanced at him, and something in his expression stopped me. There was a flicker of regret in his eyes, like he'd been holding on to that question for a long time, wondering if I'd even noticed that things had changed. Maybe he thought I hadn't. But I had. I just didn't know what to do about it. We had fallen into routines, early mornings, long evenings, barely a shared meal between us some days. We were living together, but not really living with each other. And I think we both missed the version of us that used to laugh over nothing, stay up late talking about dreams, or steal quiet kisses in the hallway. But life had crept in. Work deadlines. Family expectations. Bills. Stress. And all those little cracks in between had turned into silence. As I finally turned to face him, I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, his phone buzzed on the counter. He reached for it, hesitating when he saw the screen. I noticed the flicker of hesitation in his eyes before he answered. "Work," he said quietly, almost like an apology. He stepped out of the room to take the call, leaving me standing there, surrounded by the smell of fabric softener and half-folded laundry. The spell was broken. And yet, something still hung in the air, unfinished, unresolved. A few minutes later, he returned, looking distracted. "I might have to go in for a bit," he muttered, grabbing his keys. But I could tell his mind wasn't fully on work. Something else was bothering him. Maybe it was the call. Maybe it was us. "Can we talk later?" I asked, hoping he'd say yes. He nodded but didn't promise anything. And just like that, he was gone. As the door closed behind him, I sat down on the edge of the washing machine, thinking about everything that hadn't been said. There was more going on, something beneath the surface. I could feel it. Maybe he was hiding something. Or maybe we were both pretending not to see what was changing between us. But one thing was clear, the tension between us wasn't just romantic anymore. It was personal. Deep. Complicated. The rest of the day passed in slow motion. I went about the house, cleaning up, cooking, trying to distract myself, but my mind kept going back to that moment in the laundry room. The way he looked at me. The question he asked. And the strange energy hanging between us like something waiting to explode. It wasn't just about romance anymore. It was about something deeper. Something broken that neither of us had dared to confront until now. When evening came and Adil still hadn't returned, the tension turned into worry. I checked my phone more than I wanted to admit. No messages. No missed calls. Just silence. I paced the living room, glancing out the window every time a car passed. And then, finally, just past 9, I heard the key turn in the lock. He stepped in quietly, as if he didn't want to wake the house, though it had been wide awake in my head for hours. He looked tired. Not just physically, but emotionally drained. He set his keys down, met my eyes, and for a second, it felt like neither of us knew what to say. "You didn't call," I said, keeping my voice steady. He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. It got complicated. I didn't press. Not yet. I just stood there, waiting for him to say something else. And he did. There's something I need to tell you, he said, his voice low. My chest tightened. The kind of sentence that always comes before something big. I nodded, giving him space to continue. He stepped closer, but not too close. It's not what you think, he added quickly. But it matters. To us. My heart was beating too fast now. I searched his face for a clue, but he wasn't giving anything away. He looked scared. Vulnerable. Like he'd been carrying this weight for a long time. And suddenly, every quiet moment between us started to make more sense. The late nights. The distance. The hesitation in his eyes when I asked him if he missed us. Before he could say more, my phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it. Whatever this moment was, it was bigger than any distraction. We stood there, inches apart, surrounded by questions neither of us knew how to answer. And just as he opened his mouth to speak again, the power flickered. Then went out. The room was silent, wrapped in shadows from the sudden blackout. Only the faint glow of streetlights filtered through the curtains, casting long, uneasy shapes across the walls. I could barely see his face now, but I felt his energy, nervous, restless. He shifted slightly, and I could hear the subtle creak of the floor beneath his feet. I didn't want to tell you like this, Adil said, breaking the silence. But I can't keep it to myself anymore. My breath caught. I waited, every second stretching like hours. He took a step closer, just enough for me to see the tension in his eyes. There's someone from work, he began slowly, choosing every word carefully, who's been messaging me, a lot. It started harmless, just project updates, meetings, small talk, but lately, it's felt like more. He paused. I haven't responded the way she wants me to, but I also haven't told you, and that's what's eating me up. A chill ran down my spine. I didn't expect this. My heart was racing, but I stayed silent, trying to process his words. This wasn't a full-blown betrayal, but it wasn't nothing either. It was emotional space he had shared with someone else. Something I thought only belonged to us. And in that moment, it wasn't jealousy that hit me first, it was sadness. That someone else had his attention, even for a moment, when I'd been here, trying to hold on. You think I've cheated, he said, reading my silence. But I haven't. I swear, I didn't cross that line. I didn't stop it either. He looked away, ashamed. And I hate that I let it get that far. I took a deep breath, unsure how to respond. This was more than just a misunderstanding. It was a crack in our foundation. And yet, deep down, a part of me understood. We'd both been drifting. And when someone else made him feel noticed, maybe it was easier to lean into that, even if only slightly. But before I could speak, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, and this time, my heart dropped. A message from someone I hadn't heard from in years, Zoya. My college friend. And Adil's ex-girlfriend. The timing couldn't have been more strange. I clicked open the message, hands trembling. I didn't know how else to say this, but I think you should know what I found out about Adil. It's important. I stared at the words, my body frozen. Adil noticed the change in my expression. Who is it? He asked. I didn't answer right away. My mind was already racing, tangled in a storm of doubt, memories, and questions I never thought I'd have to ask. And just like that, what started as a quiet moment in the laundry room had spiraled into something deeper, and far more dangerous than I ever expected. I stared at the message from Zoya, my fingers tightening around the phone. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. Adil stepped closer, sensing something was wrong. What is it? He asked again, more firmly this time. I finally looked up at him, my voice shaky. "It's Zoya. She messaged me. Said there's something I need to know about you." His eyes widened, and for a split second, I saw something flash across his face. Fear? Regret? I couldn't tell. "Zoya," he repeated, as if the name alone shook him. "What is she talking about?" I asked. "What did you not tell me?" He took a breath, stepped back, and rubbed his forehead. "It's not what it sounds like. She's just trying to stir things up. You know how she is." But I didn't. I hadn't heard from Zoya in years. We lost touch after college, and I barely thought about her, until now. The message still glowed on the screen, but before I could respond, Adil's phone buzzed on the table again. I looked at it. Another message from the same coworker he mentioned earlier. "The preview showed just enough. Still thinking about what you said. I can't stop." My stomach turned. "You said it wasn't serious," I whispered. He looked trapped, his face pale under the dim light. "I didn't do anything," he said. "But maybe I started to want to. Just to feel something again." That confession cut deeper than anything else. Not because of the woman, but because of how far we had drifted. He wasn't the only one who had felt lost. I had too. We both stopped trying, and now we were here, staring at the pieces of something that used to feel so solid. Just then, my phone buzzed again. Zoya's message continued. "You deserve to know the truth. I found out she's been messaging other men too. Your husband might be caught in something he didn't even start." A cold chill swept through me. I looked at Adil, his eyes filled with guilt, but also confusion. Maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. Maybe he wasn't the villain in this story. Maybe the real twist was that we had both been caught in someone else's game. I looked at him, my voice barely a whisper. "Do we fix this?" And for the first time in a long time, he looked at me, not with hesitation, but with clarity. "Only if we're honest. Starting now." Adil and I stood there in the dim room, caught between what was broken and what could still be saved. The air was thick with unspoken feelings, and even though my hands were shaking, I reached out and took his. Not everything made sense yet. We still had questions, doubts, things to work through, but in that moment, we chose to stay. To talk. To begin again, honestly. The next day, we sat down, without distractions. No phones, no chores, no pretending. He opened up about everything. The pressure at work. How he felt invisible at home sometimes, even though he never stopped caring. I told him how I'd felt alone too, like we were living beside each other instead of with each other. We realized we had been giving each other half versions of love, distracted by life, drifting further apart without noticing. We read the rest of Zoya's messages together. She explained how the woman at Adil's office had a pattern, messaging married men, seeking attention, complicating lives. Zoya had seen her at a recent event, heard stories, and when she recognized Adil's name, she reached out. It was a strange twist of fate, but somehow, it helped clear a path we couldn't see before. Adil had been on the edge, yes, but he hadn't fallen. And now, he was choosing to step back, not alone, but with me. Over the next few weeks, we made small changes. Coffee together before work. Leaving love notes like we used to. No more dodging tough conversations. We even laughed again, real, deep laughs that reminded us why we started this life together. The washing machine, once the backdrop of a tense moment, now sat in quiet witness to our healing. And maybe that's how love works sometimes. It breaks. It bends. It gets tested. But if both people are still willing to fight for it, really fight, then there's still a way forward. Even when it seems like everything is falling apart.